defeat of the year, and an injury in that loss may have just changed the course of the season. Hello everyone, welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the number one Inter-Miami focused podcast providing you with all the latest news, analysis, opinions, inside information, general punditry, and much more. My name is Franco Panizo, and I am one of the weekly co-hosts of this bilingual program. A bilingual program that has been listened to in more than 50 countries and counting, and where the beautiful game collides with passion and analysis. It's just two of us again on this week's pod, and that's because Jose Armando, aka Island Jose, is too busy covering the World Baseball Classic here in Miami. It's okay though, because we have his better half all the same. Isn't that right, Andrea? Joining me once again is none other than Ajicita herself, Andrea Yanez, as she is more formally known. Andrea, how are you doing today? I know you're also in the baseball mix here, but you're present. Jose is not. I guess that shows who's got a little more energy in the tank.
I'm not gonna begin the podcast slandering my own husband. I'm just gonna say that yes, we've been a little busy with the baseball classic, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to talking about the beautiful game, about the king of sports, the best sports in the world, football. So I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back with Franco in this week. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of opinions also. We have a lot of analysis because with Gregore's injury, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
We got a lot to discuss to see what the team can do, what field can do, and how will it affect the team moving forward after this terrible, terrible, terrible injury that Gregore had.
So we will talk about a lot of those things, if not all of those things that Andrea just mentioned. We also have to talk about one other thing, and I don't know if you want to call it an elephant in the room, but it's something that I've been wanting to mention for a few weeks now, and we've been putting it off, but alas, I think it's time. I think it's time to address it. So, as you listeners may or may not know, depending on how long you've been listening to the podcast, there's normally a team of four of us, right? Jose, Andrea, myself, and Steve El Primo Brenner. Steve, however, has not been on for quite some time, and there's a reason for that. Steve has a full-time job now, and he's not working a full-time job in sports, so his schedule has become a lot busier, and as a result, he has not been able to come onto the podcast. He's been busy with his new work, busy with his family, completely understandable. Primo and I have been doing this, before Andrea and before Jose even joined, so Steve and I have been doing this for at least, I think, 2 seasons, but Steve is taking a hiatus or a sabbatical from Miami Total Football Radio. We will miss him for now, but he says he can pop back in at any time, and of course, the door is open for him to do so. He is part of the Miami Total Football Radio family. We go back to that 2021 season when he joined the podcast, so it's been a good run for him. I won't write him off. I won't say he's done.
Tell the truth. He's playing the baseball classic for Great Britain.
maybe he's also doing that in his spare time, but no. But a big shout out, a big hug to El Primo. He's been a very integral part of this podcast for so long, a staple, and it was just him and I, when my original co-host Eric Krakauer, who's now doing great things for Apple TV, he helped fill that void. So a shout out to Steve, who for now will not be part of the usual makeup of the team. I've been wanting to have him on and try to say a goodbye episode, but it just hasn't worked out. We just haven't been able to get that to work. And I've seen some people ask here and there, including last week, in a nice tweet for Primo, not a so nice tweet for Andrea, but nonetheless.
On International Women's Day. Say it. Wow. I'm getting dragged on International Women's Day. Wow.
Well, nonetheless, shout out to Steve, and hopefully we'll have him back on in the near future. I have a sneaking suspicion that if someone signs this summer, El Primo will be back in the fold in no time. But that's just my sensation That's not inside information. All right, Andrea. We've got, like you mentioned, a lot to talk about. Inter Miami's defeat to New York City FC, the injury to Gregore, what that all means, how does Inter Miami replace him, and how the team moves forward from here. We will also preview this upcoming weekend's game against Toronto FC, as well as, of course, answering some questions in our beloved Q&A session and sharing our final thoughts. So we've got quite a bit to get to. I'm going to do my darndest to get it in that 1 hour and 10 minute span, especially since we're recording late because you just got home from the World Baseball Classic. So, Andrea, lots to talk about. Let's get to it. All right, listeners. So before we dive into the game, which is normally what we do first, or we try to do first, we're going to dive into what I think is just as big, if not a bigger talking point than the most recent defeat. And that is that Gregore suffered an injury in the second half of that game. Now, what is the injury? How long is he out for? Normally, right, Andrea, we don't get a lot of information regarding Inter Miami and injuries. Like, they're super secretive. It's like Rush Hour reference here. G14 classified. It's like, locked up in a vault, and only Chris Henderson and Phil Neville and the players can get to that injury information. But in this case, Inter Miami did release some details. Not a whole lot, but something. So, progress.
Crumbs.
Hey, it's progress. It's progress. We'll take that. We'll take that for now. So, Gregore suffered a Liz Frank injury, and he has been ruled out, according to Inter Miami, indefinitely. Now, he was set to undergo a procedure on Tuesday at Baptist Health, and a recovery timeline will be determined at some point after that. Now, judging from the language in that release that Inter Miami put out on Monday, and judging from the scenes that we could see at Yankee Stadium with Gregore in tears as he was being tended to on the ground by the medical staff, as he walked off with a noticeable limp, and as he was afterwards carted off on a stretcher is the right term there. It didn't look good. It looked really bad, and it sounds like he's going to miss a good bit of time. It sounds like it's going to be, to me, it sounds like months. Now, I'm speculating because we don't have the information, but my sensation, not information, again to reiterate, my sensation is that he's going to be out for many, many months. And if that's the case, that's a big, big blow for Inter Miami. Andrea, your thoughts on the injury? How big of a blow is this for Inter Miami?
It's a big blow for Inter Miami, as we have been talking in the beginning of the season. We thought Gregore has been playing well, really well, and has been one of the main players for Inter Miami this season. So it's a big blow. We were texting during the game. We were talking through WhatsApp, and we were texting, and I told you, it doesn't look good. And we were both saying it doesn't look good because you saw it. You saw his reaction, and Gregore is a player. They called him a pit bull in Brazil because he's that type of player. And when you see Gregore with tears on his face, and when you see him have that reaction, you kind of got that something was wrong. Then when Phil said in the press conference that they were going to run some tests, we were like expecting this. And what they gave us, at least we know what is it, and that he needs surgery. I actually asked my sister, who is a doctor. She told me that was a problem in his ankle. So if a person gets an injury there, I sent her the report that Inter Miami put out, and she told me if a person needs to get surgery and needs to do therapy after. So, like you said, I'm expecting him to miss at least a couple of months because of the surgery and because of the operation that he is going to need. He cannot get better without an operation, and that is why I expect them. If he hasn't had it yet, he's going to have it very soon so that he can start his recuperation. And it's a big loss for the team. Listen, not only on the field, because Gregore, for for something, he's the captain. He's a figure that we've come to know, that has a good relationship with all the players, with the coaching staff, with the media, and is a true professional. So it's really unfortunate to see him, and to have seen him go down like he went. And listen, I also wanted to say, like, I read some people trying to blame this on Pellegrini. Pellegrini did not go with any intention of injuring Gregore. I don't think he went with an intention to injure Gregore. It's an unfortunate and unlucky play, but it's a normal play.
Andrea, we're going to start our disagreements this week. Okay, so this injury happens in the 69th minute of the game as a deflected pass out of the back. I believe it was intended for Jean Mota from Christopher McVeigh, but it takes a deflection. Gregory's racing to it, as is Pellegrini, so it's a 50-50. And Gregore, I think, has the advantage. I think he's got the positional edge there. He's going to get to it first. Now, Pellegrini tries a lunging slide tackle to win the ball. Doesn't get any of it, and he gets a lot of Gregore. And that's where Gregore suffered the injury. So former Inter Miami player, just as luck would have it or as fate would have it, it's Matthias Pellegrini that injures Gregore on the play. But I do think it is reckless. I do think it's clumsy. And I would say that that's how I would describe what I saw from Pellegrini in 2020, which is 3 years ago. But that's the type of play I saw from him in general. Not in terms of like the defensive aspect, but I saw a player that was a bit reckless in terms of some of the decisions he made, like with the ball, without the ball, just a bit careless. Again, not malicious, but just kind of not thinking. And I think that's what happened here. I think he should, because he's coming in from not directly behind Gregore, but behind and to the side, like across from Gregore. He didn't need to slide in there. I get it. They're professionals. They're competing. But part of that is making...
I think it was a normal play. I don't even think it was a yellow card. So I've seen people arguing that it should have been a yellow card. I don't know. For me, it's a normal football play, and it's unlucky that Gregore got injured.
I don't know about that one, Andrea. He goes across Gregore to try to win the ball, and that's where the injury happens.
Yeah, but he's going for the ball.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying it's malicious.
Like
I'm not saying it's malicious.
Put the tackles and hit him fully fronted. He was trying to get the ball.
I'm not saying it's malicious. I think it's reckless because
it was. I don't know if reckless. I wouldn't agree with reckless. Maybe a little bit clumsy because, of course, Gregore is injured and he's gonna be out for a couple of months. Oof. But
I just watched it again. I'm sorry. I just watched it again. And if you want to see the play, you can see it on the article at MLSsoccer.com. But Gregory's running for the ball, and Pellegrini goes again. He leaves his feet to try to win it on a slide, and his torso catches Gregory's left ankle, and that's where you see where it bends a bit, and you see Gregory in immediate pain. Pellegrini then kind of covers his face, acting if he had gotten some contact. I think it's a bit, again, clumsy. I would say reckless because you know that the other player is going to win that ball. You know when you have a chance to get to it and when you don't. And clearly him lunging is because he knows he's not going to get to it. So I think listen, you could argue whether it's a yellow, you could argue whether it's a red, debate over that. But I do think it wasn't necessary there. I think in other circumstances, a different player probably pulls up or doesn't make that challenge. Nonetheless, the challenge is made and Gregore is injured. So focusing on Inter Miami, it is a big loss because they have now lost their captain, like you mentioned, their pit bull in the middle of the field, the player that blanketed the back four and helped to provide that defensive balance. Without him, it's tough. It's tough because Victor Ulloa is not going to be the type of player that can provide you the same exact thing. He's you could say it's a like for like change, and you can hope that he does a respectable job there, but
it's not the same. We were actually talking about that with Jose, and Jose wrote an article about it, and I agree with him because he was telling me, okay, it can go two ways. he doesn't change formation because Campana, we don't know if he's fully back or he can play against Toronto or if he is fit to play the whole 90 minutes. So you bring Ulloa in. He's gonna cover you defensively for what Gregore does, but he's not gonna give you the same type of play. So that means
he's not as physical.
Yeah, he's not as physical.
He's not as rangy. He can't cover as much ground.
Exactly.
He's slower.
That means Mota will have to take some of that responsibility, some of that defensive responsibility. And if Mota takes that defensive responsibility, it means that he's gonna be involved a little bit less, and you're not gonna see him go up as much as he did in these past games with Pizarro, with Stefanelli. He's not gonna do that. So that is a big change, and a big decision that it brings for Phil Neville, because you don't have Campana. So it seems he doesn't want to go back to the diamond if Campana is not here, because he doesn't.
Well, there's also injuries up top right now. There's a bunch of injuries up top. So
Lacaba is injured, Robbie Robinson is injured, so he doesn't have a lot of options. Borgelin is injured. Campana is injured. So I don't think he's going back if Campana is not fully fit. But if he brings back the diamond, then you only bring Campana in and you let Mota take Gregore's responsibilities in the diamond.
So I don't know what Phil Neville's going to do here. I'm very curious to see how he approaches it. Does he go like for like? And if that doesn't work, does he go more attack minded and put someone like Jean Mota? Because you can put Jean Mota at the 6, right? He played there last year, and Gregore was playing a little bit more advanced. But Jean Mota is not that defensive muscle. He doesn't give you that steal. He doesn't give you that protection. Don't forget, Inter Miami this winter, they were linked with, or Gregore was linked with a move away from Inter Miami and being sold somewhere. And we did see Nobel Okello on trial at one point, who was a defensive midfielder. Now, he didn't stick around. Nothing came of that trial for the Canadian. But clearly, they were looking at that defensive midfield position. Now, Gregory's out. Ulloa is essentially your only defensive midfielder. It's a predicament. And this is where we'll really see if, like Phil Neville says, Inter Miami is too deep. I think this bodes well for Benjamin Cramashi. Probably not as a starter, but off the bench in that central midfield. If Inter Miami needs a little bit more possession, if Ulloa needs a breather. I mean, right now I think it's Ulloa starting if they want to keep that 4-2-3-1 intact. If and when, let's say, Campana comes back and let's say Gregory's still out, if they go to the diamond, then I have real questions, because I don't know if Ulloa can do that role on his own with no one next to him.
It would be Mota.
Right, but then if you put Mota there, then I think you're completely taking a gamble, because then I think the balance between attacking players and defensive players is not there. I think you're unbalanced, right? And I think you leave yourself potentially exposed to get hit on the counter and to be weaker defensively. And we're going to talk about the defense and whether they're as good as we've been thinking, or if they're not as good as we've been thinking, and Drake Callender has just been saving their blushes. So we'll get to that in a second. But it's a predicament, and I'm sure Phil Neville's sitting there with Jason Kreis and Javi Morales and Darren Powell, and they're all sitting there and they're going through the options and scenarios, and maybe Chris Henderson's placing a phone call here or there to see if they can bring somebody for cheap.
Or maybe Franco, they could just play Mota in that position and bring in Duke to play in Mota's position.
So that's definitely a possibility. Absolutely, that's a possibility. But again, I think you lose. I think you lose something defensively, though. I think you're going to have more attack-minded players and more technical players, like you like to say, mejor pie, a cleaner foot, right? A more technical, softer foot. So that will help the attack.
Then
you're
play with the ball.
Estás resintiendo la defensa. Exactly. Estás resintiendo la defensa. Your defense now takes a hit. You lose a lot defensively. And I think Gregory's been instrumental in these first 3 games, or 2 games and change for him, in terms of covering that back line and breaking things up. And without him, it's a big loss. Push comes to shove this weekend on the road against Toronto FC. Who starts at the defensive midfield spot?
I think this week he's gonna go with Ulloa starting man for man, starting for Gregore, and not change the lineup, especially because Campana could be back, a big if, because as we have been saying until the death of us, we don't know. But he could be back, he could get some minutes, so until Campana is 100% able to start, I don't think he's changing the formation, at least.
Okay, so
until that moment. So
right.
I think he's bringing one man. It's a possibility if he brings Ulloa, or for me, this game, knowing also that Insigne is not playing because he's out, he can bring in Bryce Took and leave Mota taking Gregore's responsibility.
So I will agree that I think it's Ulloa next man up this weekend. I don't know if long term that's the solution, and I don't know if long term it will prove to work out. But I do think that this weekend it'll be Victor Ulloa, and the reason for that, he's experienced. He's been around MLS, and you have to have trust, right? Like if you're Inter Miami, you gotta have trust in the next man up, and I think they'll give him his chance to play within his skill set. They won't ask him to do everything that Gregore did, but they'll ask him to try to help fill that void and see how he does and go from there. If he passes with flying colors or he just passes, then I think they can stick with that. If it doesn't work, if Ulloa does not deliver a good performance level, then I think they will revisit it and replantear la idea, or come up with a different idea. So we'll see how it goes. Again, a big loss for Inter Miami there, and unfortunate for Gregore, who had been having a very good start to the MLS season. So diving into the game, Andrea, Inter Miami went on the road to Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, New York, the Big Apple, and they suffered a 1-0 loss to New York City FC. The lone goal, the game-winning goal, the decisive goal, comes off of Christopher McVeigh, an own goal in the 36th minute, attempting to clear a free kick. McVeigh bundles home across on an awkward clearance attempt, and that's all that it took to sink Inter Miami to its first defeat of the year. Inter Miami's now 2-0-1. Right? I do wins, draws, losses in traditional football style. I know MLS does wins, loss, draws, but
don't let them change.
Whatever. MLS can do whatever it wants.
Can MLS.
Exactly. MLS can MLS. Here at Miami Total Football Radio, we're doing it the good old-fashioned way. So I'm going wins, draws, losses. So Inter Miami now is 2-0-1. This was the starting lineup for Inter Miami in the match. Again, equipo que ganó no se tocó. So the team that had been winning went untouched. So we had the exact same starting lineup for Inter Miami. In this one, Drake Callender in goal. The back four, DeAndre Yedlin, Sergi Christoph, Christopher McVeigh, Franco Negri. That first line of the midfield was Jean Mota and Gregore. Second line of the midfield, from right to left, Quarantine Coco Jean. I try to when I say his name, I start thinking about how you pronounce it, and I can never do it justice the way you pronounce Coco Jean. Andrea, so...
Let me tell you something so that you don't feel bad. I speak French, so that is why.
Oh, did not know that. But okay, well...
I haven't said anything because then they're going to ask me to be an official translator, and I don't want the job.
You'll be the interpreter at the Inter Miami press conferences. Okay, Quarantine Coco Jean, Nicola Stefanelli, and Rodolfo Pizarro were they comprise the second line of the midfield. And up top, Joseph Martinez. Now, we will talk about Joseph Martinez. We talked about him last week and his lack of involvement in the final third. He was involved in the final third in this one, but did not deliver. We'll get there in a second. Okay, so we've talked about the goal. We've talked about the lineup. Let's dive into the game. Your analysis on the overall performance from Inter Miami in this one. Andrea, did you like overall the showing, or did it leave you with a bad taste in your mouth?
I didn't dislike it. I didn't like it 100%. I think we saw good stuff in the first half, especially with the chances that Joseph Martinez had. I think that is the best we've seen in Inter Miami. of him getting involved and him getting more balls, getting more chances. So I really like that. I think the field affected them.
Oof.
I asked Phil after he was mad. After my questions, he just got up and left. But of course, the field has something to do because
Oof.
my God, that was, you could see it in with these new Apple angles.
Yes.
It was
Horrible.
horrendous. Like, I've seen better fields in fourth division here. I've covered every division of soccer, football here in the United States, and I've seen better fields in fourth division being serious.
You know what it reminded me of? And I'm not even joking. Like, it literally reminded me, and I did tweet this out during the first half of the game. But before I say this, I need to preface this. I lived in New York City. I covered NYCFC when they started in the league, and I went to their first ever game at Yankee Stadium, and I went to many games at Yankee Stadium. Heck of a press box catering or the press box food at Yankee Stadium. Superb. Now, I always knew that the field was terrible, right? Like, the angles, it's a baseball stadium, so like even in the press box, you're sitting and you're at an angle, and it's not a soccer experience. It's not made to be a soccer football experience. But I don't know if maybe over time I just got used to it, or maybe I had become immune to it a little bit. But man, that field is terrible. There's essentially no wings. There's no wing. It literally felt like the second half of the Inter Miami media game. Like,
Exactly.
and I know we were playing 14 on 14, and there's no space to do anything. No, and I'm not. That was a little joke to make it relevant. But anyone who's listening to this who has played pickup, you've had games. I'm sure. You can nod your head in approval, or say no if you haven't. But I'm sure the majority of you that have played pickup somewhere, you've come across games where you're playing on, whether it's a full field or a smaller field, but you're playing adequate amount of people for that field, whether it's 7 on 7, 11 on 11, whatever it is. But then someone always gets the idea, que jueguen todos, let everybody play. And then you've got like this helter-skelter mess where the ball doesn't move because there's no space. Everyone's on top of one another, and that's what I saw in this game, which we've seen before with Inter Miami versus NYCFC.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Apple TV just emphasized it even more, if the camera angles were a little bit low. I don't know what it was, but it was terrible. So sorry, Andrea. That was my long intervention. But continue.
You said it best, and I'm gonna continue ranting because listen, MLS needs to do something about this field, man. CONCACAF didn't let them play there. Mm-hmm. They said no, this is not professional. And listen, every time the United States or a United States team goes to Central America or the Caribbean, they begin talking about the field, blah blah blah. Listen, I would prefer 1,000 times to play on a muddy field than to play on that, because that was seriously horrendous. And not only horrendous, it's not up to the rules, the measurements. So as you were saying, you put the perfect example. It seemed like everyone was on top of everyone and you didn't have enough space for them to play a good match. And that is what happened. Inter Miami had possibilities, New York City had possibilities, but it wasn't an interesting match. Like it could have been if they played somewhere else, I'm sure. It's going to be different when they come here. I can bet you that. And it's really unfortunate because I really like some parts of Inter Miami. I really did. And I think they should have won in the first half at least. They should have gotten a goal. I would have been happy with a tie. I think they deserved a tie.
So before I end my rant on the stadium, right? So apparently NYCFC will have a soccer-specific stadium built in city proper, at least if you believe New York City FC, in 2027.
Hopefully.
I have my questions if it's going to happen by 2027. But nonetheless, we're stuck seeing this field in MLS for a long time. And this is how I'll finish my rant. Is someone brought up a good point. Imagine someone in Europe or South America turning on Apple TV, tuning in, or wherever the game's broadcast in the respective countries. Imagine them turning on the TV, the computer, whatever, and they see that. Like that, that's got to be a joke to most people out there. I mean, it is a joke. And this is, again, it's not a new development. NYCFC's almost been in the league for a decade, and there's many more years to come on that field. But, man, every time you see that, it is an eyesore. It is ridiculous.
I can only imagine Christoph and Negris and Stefanelli's first time seeing this pitch. They must have... I can even hear their voices.
when they did...
Even say Sergey, and I can imagine, and Negris saying, and Stefanelli, especially since he is a very... he likes to talk about all that stuff and about football.
Very soccer savvy.
Exactly. I can't imagine his face watching that because...
Imagine when they did el conocimiento de la cancha. When they walked out to, to get familiarize themselves with the field. They must have been like, what is this? And there's the baseball mound. It's not far off the sideline.
Exactly.
There was a table with a guy sitting where the field should be. There was literally a table with a guy sitting there. And I'm sure he served a purpose and he has his function and his roles and responsibilities. But I don't know what it was because he's literally just sitting there at where the field should be, and it's not pretty. It's not a pretty sight. You won't expect to see any MLS All-Star games there. I'm sure
any international games there.
Well, I'm sure MLS secretly is keeping its fingers crossed that no MLS Cup will ever have to be there. But anyway, all right, back to the game that was played, because look, both teams have to play on that field. Yes, NYCFC is probably a bit more familiar and used to it. Of course, it's their home field. Inter Miami, I agree with you, didn't play poorly. They put up a respectable effort, especially in that first half. I thought they were the better team in the first half. They should have scored at least one goal, if not two, depending on how you want to look at it. Josef Martinez had two good opportunities, one very good one out of those two, and he failed to put them away. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But on the collective side, Inter Miami put up a good fight in that first half. They put forth a respectable showing. Now, the old adage, the old saying is that goals change games. Well, in this one, an own goal changed the game. Because while Inter Miami was attacking and looking more threatening, then comes the own goal, right? Josef Martinez fails to capitalize. If he scores one of those two chances, or he scores the first one, which is the best one of the day for Inter Miami, then Inter Miami has a lead, and the whole complexion of the game changes. Now they have to protect the lead on the road. They don't have to necessarily bombard forward as much or look to get forward as much. The whole dynamic of the game changes, but he does not put it away. A free kick comes in, again, late in the first half. Christopher McVeigh, I'm not sure what he was doing there. I know clearly he was trying to hit the ball to safety, but he just bundled it completely. I think because vino a media altura, like it came at mid-level, so not high enough for him to head it, but not low enough for him to play it comfortably. I think he got caught in an awkward attempt to clear the ball, and obviously, as you saw, he pushed it inadvertently home, or not home, but inadvertently into Inter Miami's own net. So Inter Miami at that point, they're up against it, and in the second half, the whole game changed. NYCFC was more confident. Their head coach said that they also made tactical adjustments, but sure, there were some tactical adjustments they made. But I think the goal really changed the course of the game, because then Inter Miami now needed to push more numbers forward and try to take more chances, and I don't think they created another very clear-cut opportunity like they had in the first half, and NYCFC just looked the better team, and they just had to protect their lead. They started to find more space in behind because Inter Miami was throwing more numbers forward, and they created some good looks. They could have iced this game. The only reason Inter Miami stayed in this game was because of Drake Callender, and once again, the amount of quality saves that he made here. We'll talk about his performance in a little bit. So, tale of two halves. Inter Miami better in the first half. Second half, the wheels fell off when they were up against it with their backs against the wall, especially with the injury to Gregore.
Yeah, right. I think that changed the game, and a point that I wanted to touch is that they didn't use their 5 changes. I thought that was weird. I even asked Phil about it because I was really curious. Did they mess it up? He didn't trust what he had on the bench.
So I think part of it looking at the bigger picture, is that they don't have many attacking substitutions out there. I know Gregory's a defensive midfielder, but they didn't have a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're like you've mentioned, Lacava hasn't dressed yet on a match day roster. Schneider Borgelin still injured. Campana injured. Robbie Robinson injured.
They had Cremarchi.
And I do think if the injury hadn't happened, I do think we would have seen Cremaschi come in. I do think but just the injury changed things and changed the course of things for Inter Miami. That's what I think happened. Nonetheless, again, Inter Miami put up a respectable fight. Not a whole lot from the outside. You didn't see Franco Negri, understandably so.
How?
Exactly.
He must have been like, ¿Qué carajo es esto?
He would have had to run out of the field and come back inside to try to find some width out there. But yeah, Inter Miami didn't get a whole lot from fullbacks. They're playing with four. So there wasn't just enough space for them, and clearly a lot of the stuff had to come through the middle, and that's where you saw, like I mentioned before, a lot of players on top of one another, just because there's not a whole lot of space. Not a whole lot of space. Now, let's talk about the own goal. What do you think Christopher McVey was doing there? What could he have done, or what should he have done? Or should Drake Callender have come off his line and collected that one?
Well, if Drake Callender would have called it before, but I guess we cannot know because we don't have a microphone on Callender and McVey. Sometimes the microphones get it, but we didn't hear who said mine or who said yo, or said mia, or whatever the hell you use to let your teammate know who is getting to it. I just think McVey tried to get it out, to do it, and he was a little bit clumsy with the way that he did it, especially in front of the area. You need, in front of the small area, you need to clear it the other way. I think it was a little bit clumsy. I don't know if Drake would have gotten to the ball if he had asked for it. I think it's just bad luck, a little bit of clumsiness and bad luck from McVey. And it wasn't even deserved by New York City at that moment, because they hadn't shown anything.
Right.
They did in the second half.
In the second, right. It's so I could understand the point that Inter Miami, I can see the argument, and I don't necessarily 100% disagree with, like you said, that they could have gotten a point from this one, and that would have been a respectable result. But based on what I saw in the second half, I thought NYCFC deserved to win. Now, does that come after this own goal? Absolutely. Does that come after Josef Martinez misses a couple of chances? Yes, absolutely. But that's part of the game, and my analysis, I would say NYCFC deserved to win. So, yes, Inter Miami could have been more clinical, but they weren't. And then the second half...
That's a big problem. Listen, that's a big problem the team has.
We'll get there in a second. And I'm watching the replay of the goal. So it comes a free kick from Inter Miami's right, and McVey just misplays it. I do think Drake Callender could come off his line there. I do think it's somewhere. It's a play that he can say, it's mine.
I don't think it would have been risky. Right now we can say because it was an own goal. But if Drake came out, it could have been risky. It could have been risky, it could have been a goal also.
So where I would say, and again, these are obviously split-second decisions that have to be made, there's only one player. Maxime Chanot, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. He's the only player that could make a play on that ball. Because literally everyone else for NYCFC is at the near post, or they make runs to the near post. Like, watch the replay, and I'll tell you right now as I'm watching it. It's just Maxime Chanot is the only player who's making the run. That's who McVey is trying to protect the ball from the ball getting to that player. But it's literally Chanot, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5, if not 6, black and pink jerseys before you see another baby blue NYCFC jersey. Like, that fire should have been dealt with, of course. And again, McVey awkwardly. See, you use the word clumsy. You use the word clumsy there, but you also use the word clumsy for Pellegrini's challenge. See, I don't think those two things are the same here. One's a clumsy clearance, the other one's a bit. The other one, how do you equate that to the challenge? The challenge is definitely a little reckless. But
reckless.
Now you agree.
Clumsy, reckless.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a world in between. It's a little. In Spanish, it's easier to say like, fue con mucha fuerza, se pasó demasiado. But In English, it's hard, but
So clumless. We'll say not clumsy, not reckless, clumless. Okay.
Yeah, new word.
There we go. Look, I think the fire could have been put out. I think Drake Callender, if he comes out for that one and he says it's his, all he has to worry about is Maxime Chanot. So that if he comes out, he doesn't have to worry about bodies in front of him.
Yeah, especially because he is seeing that there's only one player.
Exactly. So I think he could have taken steps forward to come collect the ball as opposed to taking a step backwards. And now, obviously, these are, again, split-second decisions. These are fine lines. These are the margins of error. These are the decisions that can lead to a win or a loss. I'm not blaming it on Drake Callender for the poor clearance that Christopher McVey did. Clearly, McVey, again, I think the ball comes at him at an awkward angle, and again, he's not the most technical player, so he kind of awkwardly puts his foot through the ball and places it into the back of the net, as opposed to letting the ball drop a little bit more and then him clearing it in a more comfortable or more natural movement or position. But nonetheless, I do think Drake Callender could have done better, and of course, Christopher McVey could have done a lot better. Now let's go to the other end. Josef Martinez had 2 chances, very good chances. Again, does not put them away. If he does, it's a different game. It's a game that's more in Inter Miami's favor, but he struggles, and he misses on the first attempt. He puts it over the crossbar despite being at around the penalty area with decent space. I'm not saying he had acres of space to shoot the one-time cross from Rodolfo Pizarro, if I'm not mistaken, but he had enough space where you would expect a striker, especially a striker of his pedigree, to put that in the back of the net. But he fires it over the crossbar. Got some good power behind it, but got it over the crossbar, or shot it over the crossbar. On the second one, he's more at the top of the 18. Ball comes in, and again, he's got a decent amount of space where he can try to place it, but shoots it too close to the middle and shoots it right at the NYCFC goalkeeper. Now, Andrea, I'm going to be critical of Josef Martinez because he's paid to score goals. And yes, he's not been the same player since the injury, and he's not at 100% sharpness or at 100% fitness yet. But his job is to score goals. And he did not do that in this game. Yes, he was more involved. Yes, he was at the end of more dangerous plays, which we had not seen in the first 2 matches. So you could say that's progress. But he had to put one of them away. And he didn't. And I think he wasted those opportunities. And I asked Phil Neville after the game where Josef Martinez is, how much longer they think it's going to take him to get to 100%. And Phil was very diplomatic and, obviously positive about Josef Martinez. And he said, he's almost certain that Josef Martinez will score goals in this league this season. He didn't do the Gonzalo Higuain thing where he would, kind of rip Higuain not so subtly by being like, oh, well, we need to put the ball in the back of the net. Our quality players have to deliver. He didn't do that here.
Until he realized Higuain was a solution for his problem.
Well, but just talking on Josef, I think, he's not there yet, but he needed to do better. He has to deliver because that's the difference between either a point on the road, at least a point, if not 3, and 0. He puts one of those into the back of the net. And you know what this reminded me of? And then I want to hear your thoughts. It reminded me of the Inter Miami versus Austin FC preseason finale at Drive Pink Stadium. Josef Martinez had 2 good looks in that one as well. One very similar at the top of the 18 where he shot it right at the goalkeeper. A chance where, again, you would expect him to do better. And I remember Phil Neville's reaction during that game. Phil Neville, when he saw that shot, and it was, again, the second, similar to this game, the second of 2 shots where Josef Martinez failed to capitalize. Phil Neville in that game against Austin FC, and it was only a friendly, preseason, he, threw a fist in frustration and turned back towards the bench, pretty angry, or pretty frustrated that chance, that's a clear-cut chance, or a very good chance, wasn't put away. And this happened now in a game where points mattered. Josef Martinez has to do better. He's got to put that ball in the back of the net. Otherwise, if he doesn't consistently deliver when he's got the ball in the final third, then you're gonna have to start looking at other options because yes, his name is got some appeal and some star power, but you have to produce on the field. If you're losing games because your forward's not scoring, or that's part of why you're losing games, then then that's something you have to really review. I don't think they'll bench him. Right now they're working him back up, and he's
that
not
is
100%.
a problem, Franco, because talking about that, I agree with what you are saying, but also talking about that, Joseph has now the pressure that he is the only striker with experience, with career of experience playing and scoring goals. He's the only one. And listen, since the beginning, I was not 100% in agreement with the decision of starting him, because he is clearly not 100%. I understand that the team invested in him, but since we have talked in this podcast that he is not ready to be a starter, he's not ready to carry the team and to score as many goals as people expect him to do, because he simply is not that player anymore. He can return to be that player, but you have to take a player like this and build him up. I think Phil threw him because he needed him, because he needed
the situation is called for it.
No, and before, because he decided he was going to be a starter even though he wasn't ready. And he threw him in because they needed to get the fans to the stadium. I understand that. But with that, you don't help the player 100%. And now you add Campana's injury to that. You add La Cava, that is not injured but is not getting into the roster. You add Robbie Robinson. You add Borderland, and adding not being a striker, Robert Taylor not being a striker, then it falls on Joseph. And when you have been injured, when you have the pressure, when you are thinking about all that goes into Joseph, especially him, the most important being him not being 100% physically, that is a lot to cope with. So I understand the misses.
Come on.
It's necessary for him to get these misses, because that is the only way he will get to scoring goals. Listen, it was clear, yes, in another moment he would have gotten them in. Yes, I agree 100% with that. But right now, he should be getting even more chances to score goals.
Andrea.
He got 2, Franco, but...
Andrea, this is a road game. And when the game was balanced, he got 2 chances as a number 9. He should put one of those away, especially the first one.
Listen,
Andrea, you're apologizing. Yes. Okay, all right. I have retracted. I've retracted my statement.
I have told you since the beginning, he would need time, because...
Absolutely, he needs time, Andrea. I get that. I understand he's not 100% there. I get it.
And the thing is that now the responsibility, Phil has thrown the responsibility just to him.
No. I don't think that's an accurate nor a fair statement, because I don't think it's Phil's fault of the current.
No, obviously because of
there's been injuries, absolutely. So
exactly. And that is how Phil wants to be banned.
And that's how I asked the question post game, because of the situation that the team is in. Right? Because of these injuries up top, what was supposed to be a strike partnership where 2 forwards are carrying the scoring burden or splitting up those responsibilities between themselves or between one another, because of the injuries, Joseph Martinez is essentially right now the only number 9 option.
Yes.
So now the responsibility falls squarely on his shoulders sooner than Inter Miami probably wanted it,
yes.
But that's just nature of sports. That's what's happened. Again,
he needs that first goal.
He has to deliver, Andrea. That's what he gets paid to do. That's what he is paid to do.
It's not as easy as to deliver, because if every player that is paid to deliver, then the Dolphins would have won 5 Super Bowls.
Don't talk to me. This is not Miami Total Football. This is Miami Total Football Radio, but it's not Miami Total Football Radio. So no.
Okay, let me tell you something, MLS. Then Zlatan would have won 5 titles with LA Galaxy.
Andrea,
because he delivered in goals.
Andrea, if
Victor would have won with LA Galaxy, it's not.
But he didn't deliver the goals. That's the whole point, is that he did not deliver the goals when they needed him to.
People are mad because they expected him to be the Joseph from Atlanta, and he's not that player.
I'm not asking him to score a hat trick. I'm asking him to put away a clear-cut chance that he had. That's what he should have done, and that's the expectation he should be held to, because he is a player with quality and experience. Is he the same player he was a few years ago? No. But that does not mean that he should not be expected to put away that first chance. Again, I understand he's not 100%. I understand.
It was centimeters. He shot it well. It's not like he missed it or it was bad luck because a couple of centimeters lower.
Not bad luck. And yeah, those are the margins. That's not bad luck. He didn't hit the post here. He shot it over the crossbar. I think you're apologizing for him a little too much. I think, look, he's a striker. He gets paid to put the ball in the back of the net. You could even see him with the. And then, hey, kudos to Apple.
Not gonna score more than 8 goals this season. I had told it since the beginning.
It's early.
But
it's early for that. It's early for that. Kudos to Apple, by the way, because I really like their HD. Cameras and the new cameras they brought in with the new angles, because you can pick up a lot more detail. It feels more football friendly. Well, the Yankee Stadium field does not. The broadcast do, because you could see the close-ups on Joseph Martinez after the misses. You could see him lamenting it in his head. You could see how he was like, man, I should have put that one away. You also saw at halftime when they zoomed in on Christopher McVeigh how he said pretty noticeably, "F me." You know? So
you could also see Phil when Pellegrini injured Gregore.
But okay, so listen, again, it's not all on Joseph. You know, Nicola Stefanelli also hasn't gotten there yet. He talked today on Tuesday about how he knows he has more to give the team. Que él puede dar más. You know, he talked about that briefly. So, you know, if Stefanelli picks up his performance, and that should help Joseph Martinez, but you have to expect Joseph Martinez to put that ball in the net. That's what he gets paid to do, regardless if he's 100% or not. Because guess what? Victor Ulloa is going to probably play this weekend, or at least we think so. And he hasn't played in several weeks. But he's going to be expected to deliver a good performance level there. It's not because, he hasn't played in a few weeks, so he's rusty, so that's okay, that's an excuse. No, those are excuses. He has to put the ball in the back of the net. That's it. Simple. Period. That's it. Bottom line. Especially on chances like that. All right, let's move forward, because we'll get stuck on this topic for a while, it seems. Drake Callender, just quickly, because we've touched on his strong start to the season. Again, in the second half, he came up big to keep Inter Miami alive, to give them a fighting chance to take something out of this game. They don't, but another stellar showing from him in goal. He was again named to the MLS team of the match day, second time in the first 3 weeks that he's done that. Any thoughts on his continued strong start?
I really like Drake Callender. I think he's progressing well, especially with his shot stopping. He's a great goalkeeper. I think I agree with Phil. It's time for him to get to the next level, and the next level for him is getting to the U.S. national team. And I've been asking him since a year ago, practically, since he began, if they had called him. Unfortunately, they have not. That is an experience as a player you need to get for you to change perspective, for you to grow in your game. And I think that is what Drake Callender needs in this moment. That kind of, I don't know how to say it, like that kind of commitment of responsibility that you get in a national team. I think he needs a taste of that, and that will help him grow.
I've seen this type of thing before, right? And, you know, I get called, and Jose has called me in the past, Drake Callender's representante, his representative, his agent, because I've sang his praises dating back to last year, when I think it was pretty clear that he can make very good saves, and he's got very good shot stopping abilities. I don't think he's in the national team picture conversation yet. I think he's starting to become an interesting option. That, listen, the U.S. men's national team doesn't even have a head coach right now. So, but nonetheless,
he's an option.
He's a player that you start to watch a little more closely. But I don't think he's in the conversation to be called up yet. You need to do this consistently. Consistently.
Jose agrees with what you have said. And
Absolutely.
He had told me that because, I understand that. But listen, especially in these games that are coming up with Nations League, that the U.S. practically
could you give him a call and have him as a third goalkeeper? Sure. But
that will help him, because listen, if you only call goalkeepers from the MLS, okay, the best goalkeeper in the league is Andre Blake. He's not American.
Maybe they can do it in April when they're having this whatever crap name they just came up with for the friendly that they're playing Mexico, when it's not even a
whatever
FIFA international calendar game.
Yeah.
So clubs are not required to release their players. If I'm in Miami and they try to call Drake Callender, I wouldn't release him. Because if he gets injured on international duty, then you're really putting yourself in a tough spot. I wouldn't release him. Listen, but back to the point. Hold on, Andrea. Hold on.
It's the step he needs to make.
Hold on. Because I got away from my earlier point. I've seen this before. When I covered the Red Bulls as a beat writer when I first moved to New Jersey in 2012, when players start to play well in their respective markets, both head coaches and media start to bang the drum of, national team. I've seen it before. Now, I'm not saying Drake Callender doesn't have the potential to make it onto the U.S. men's national team at some point. But right now, I say no. Needs to consistently get there. Also, the errors that he has with his feet at the international level.
Yeah, that is something
he's going to get crushed,
eaten alive.
Right.
Yeah.
So that has to be ironed out, and he has to deliver this type of performance. Maybe not at this high level, but he needs to play at a high level consistently for a prolonged period. Now, he showed good stuff last year. He was a revelation last year. Thought he finished the year a little shaky, but you remember, don't forget, last year he was benched at one point for one game. Nick Marsman came back in against the Chicago Fire, and Marsman didn't have a great game, so they put Drake Callender back in there. But you need to see it consistently. Then we can talk about national team call-ups. I think it's premature from Phil Neville. I get it. He's backing his guy, giving him a vote of confidence publicly. I get it. And I believe that Phil Neville believes that Drake Callender can get there. And I believe that Drake Callender can get there. But I don't think he's there yet. I think it's premature to be talking
He's not better
Drake
than
Callender.
My guy, right? You know who I'm talking about?
Are you talking about Sean Johnson? Because you got that one right. It's the one you've gotten right in your year and change on the podcast. The only one you've gotten one right.
I got Higuain right also. Hey, don't take that away from me.
I'll give that one to Jose. I'll give you Sean Johnson.
I gave you that pass so that we start talking about the Toronto game because
all right, yes. Well, before we get there, very quickly, because we can dive into this more in the Q&A, but very quickly, is Callender making this defense look better than it is? Yes or no?
Yes, he's making the defense look better, but that doesn't mean that the defense is bad.
Well, we'll touch on that in the Q&A session. We have a good question there. We'll touch on that in the Q&A session. I think yes. Yes, big time yes. All right, quickly switching gears to Sean Johnson and Toronto FC. Inter Miami goes to BMO Field on Saturday. Like you mentioned before, Italian national team player Lorenzo Insigne is out with an injury. He will not play, which is helpful for Inter Miami. Now, Toronto FC is winless on this season. They lost away to DC United, tied away to Atlanta United, and then this past weekend tied 1-1 at home against Columbus. So they have a 0-win, 2-draw, 1-loss record. And they've scored 4 goals, so they can score some goals here. It's Bob Bradley's team, so you can expect them to try to be the protagonist. I don't know if Inter Miami will get the same type of possession as they did against NYCFC. Against NYCFC, Inter Miami won the possession battle, but I don't necessarily see that being the case against Toronto. Now, very quickly, Andrea. Last week we thought Inter Miami could beat that NYCFC team. We thought it was a winnable game. And based on what we saw, it was a winnable game. They just didn't do it. Is this game against Toronto FC a winnable game? Can Inter Miami win this match without Gregore?
It's a winnable match, especially because Toronto haven't found themselves. They're missing their most important player. But still, they have interesting pieces. Richie Larea, they have Bernardeschi, they have a good goalkeeper now. Let's remember that Miami won last year because the goalkeeper, that thing that he did when they came to play here. Do you remember that howler that he had? It was horrendous. But now they have a good goalkeeper. But I think Miami has more possibility to win against Toronto than with New York, especially because they're playing in a good field, first of all. And then because Miami can take advantage of all the spaces that a team of Bob Bradley leaves, because they are an attack-minded team. So Inter Miami can take advantage of that. They have the weapons. They have Joseph Martinez, but they need to have Pizarro and Stefanelli creating more chances, creating more dangerous opportunities in the spaces that the Toronto FC is going to leave, because Toronto FC plays going forward. They don't wait for you or wait for you to come.
Right. So, like you mentioned, Federico Bernardeschi will be a player to keep an eye on if you're Inter Miami. Look, if I'm Phil Neville, and I give this player that I'm about to mention all the respect for the career he's carved out, especially with the national team. But at this point, he's not what he used to be. If I'm Inter Miami, I go at Michael Bradley as a point. Like, that is who I'm going at consistently. Look, they've partnered Michael Bradley with the more athletic, the more rangy. Of course, Michael Bradley's at a later stage in his career. Mark-Anthony Kaye to help fill the spots there in the midfield defensively. Bradley's good positionally, but athletically, I've seen him get beat very easily, often over the last few years. If I'm Inter Miami, I'm telling that midfield, go at Michael Bradley any chance you get. Dribble at him, penetrate through that part of the field, try to get around him on the dribble, because it's doable. And I think that can unbalance Toronto FC, and that can be a very big key for success for Inter Miami. Now, without Gregore, I'll say what I said last week. Un punto es un buen negocio for Inter Miami. A point on the road, I think, is a good result. A win, of course, absolutely. You would take a win today if somebody offered you and said, Andrea, I give you a crystal ball and Inter Miami will win in the future. Will you take that? If you're Phil Neville, you say, yeah, absolutely. But now, if someone came in the future and was like, here's the crystal ball, you will tie on Saturday. Will you take that? If I'm Inter Miami, I would take a draw. Today, I would say without Gregore, I would take a point on the road against Toronto FC. I think it's respectable. I think it's a valuable point, and then you return home and you've gotten something out of this road swing.
Yes.
So you take a draw. You would be okay with the draw if you're Inter Miami. I say yes. I don't know if that's what Phil Neville thinks, yes. But I would say yes. I would say, especially without Gregore.
Yes, yeah. That plays a long way in what Inter Miami we're gonna begin can do this season. We're gonna begin seeing that in this game in Toronto. Listen, in Canada, you still have the cold weather up there in Canada. Exactly. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for the team. It's gonna be hard.
Forecasted as high as 33, as low as 24 Fahrenheit. And you could see in this last game against New York City FC, how cold Inter Miami's players
Especially
felt.
Imagine for Joseph and Stefanelli that they have to get accustomed to the humidity down here, and now you're taking them to that kind of temperature. I don't expect them to play more than 65 minutes, to tell you the truth, because it's going to be hard on them.
So that's the question then, Andrea, to start wrapping up this segment. What lineup do you see? Are you only saying Ulloa for Gregore? That's the only change we see, based on what we know. Again, this is early in the week, Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, because we're past midnight now, but is that the only change you see? Ulloa for Gregore. Is that what you think?
Yes. I'm going to put an asterisk on that, because I can see also Phil bringing Bryce Duke as a starter for Stefanelli because of that temperature, because of the conditions, and because he's not 100%. And listen, if you get a knock in that cold with a player that is not 100% physically, you could cause an injury, and Inter Miami cannot afford to lose more players to injury. So I can see Bryce Duke also coming in for Stefanelli in this match.
I didn't like Bryce Duke's performance off the bench against NYCFC. I didn't think he was particularly good. He lost the ball pretty carelessly a few times. But I do think at this point it's an option that Phil Neville is probably very strongly considering. Because, again, it's not inside information. This is just my sensation, my supposition from the outside. Stefanelli's clearly not 100%. Again, he spoke Tuesday about how he has more to give. He talked about how he's still adapting to the league and the weather and the new life in a new country. all that stuff plays a part. You know, if you can't focus 100% on the football because you're taking care of your family and making sure that they're okay, like as you're trying to think about getting a car or getting an apartment or getting the baby set up in aftercare or whatever it is that happens in the day-to-day life of a player, then you can't focus 100% on the football. Even you try as much as you want on the physical aspect of things. So I think Duke for Stefanelli, based on the performance levels of Stefanelli to this point, I think it's a possibility. I do think Ulloa for Gregore, and then I think the rest of the team stays the same. Maybe, and this is not inside information. It's not inside information. Possibly, maybe we could see Inter Miami switch to a back five or a back three, if you want to look at it that way, just to try to help shore things up defensively. And I think Ryan Saylor would come in that way, and then do you put in Ulloa in front of the back line, or you just go with Jean Mota? I don't know. I think it's a possibility. I think it's definitely something that's been tabled as an option.
And also, Franco, let's remember that they got some players that have been called up to their national teams. Joseph, Robert Taylor, Mavica, and they are leaving after this game. So it's something to... And MLS doesn't stop, right?
Right.
For this
window.
This window. So it's something that we can see change. We could see these changes we're talking about in this game because it's the moment to do it.
So Andrea, then what's the key to the game? Very quickly, key to the game for Inter Miami to come out with something out of this one.
I think the midfield is gonna be key of the game in this. If they win against, you said, Michael Bradley and Calle, I think Inter Miami could.
Calle, it's K. It's K. Pronouncing
whatever.
it Calle like
Calle,
it's Spanish.
whatever.
That's hilarious. Mark Anthony Street.
Mar Anthony. I'm gonna don't get
There we
me
go.
started.
I like that.
Mar Anthony K, like you call Mark Anthony. It's Mar Anthony.
There we go.
Mark Anthony.
There we go.
Mar
I like
Anthony Calle. So I think
This is a bilingual podcast.
Yeah, it's a bilingual podcast. So I think if they can, if Pizarro, Stefanelli, and Mota can dominate and can get their playing abilities in that midfield, I think it's going to be important. It's going to be important. So I guess the duel in this game, especially for Inter Miami, is in the midfield.
I think.
For you,
I want to say take your chances, but you know what? I think they need to be more solid at the back. You know what? You might not need a goal. You might take a 0-0 draw and take your point, and that's fine. That defense needs to be better because they've relied too much on Drake Callender, and we'll touch on this in the Q&A session. They've relied too much on Drake Callender to bail them out through this point in the season. Again, I do think Callender's making that defense look better than it is. I'm not saying the defense is bad, but they've given up some clear looks that you can't expect Callender to continue to bail them out of on a consistent basis. Defense has to be better. If they can hold their own defensively without Gregore, which again, that's a key part. Without Gregore, can you hold your own defensively? If you can keep a 0 at the back, you give yourselves a chance to at least get a point. I think that's the key to the game. Defensively, be very solid. All right, we've talked for a while, gone over the mark. I said we're going to try our best not to, but oh well. All right, Q&A session very quickly after this, and then we'll do the final thoughts, of course, as well. Q&A will go very quickly because we're going long. All right, and it's past midnight now, thanks to the World Baseball Classic.
Which Joseph is enjoying also.
Edison Ascona too.
Tomorrow, yeah. Edison Ascona has... He will be there. I will see him there because tomorrow is going to be the...
He was there tonight.
Yeah, they play tonight, but tomorrow is the big game, Puerto Rico against the Dominican Republic, the reggaeton duo. Daddy Yankee versus Ozuna.
Ozuna's Puerto Rican, girl. Ozuna's Puerto Rican.
Half Dominican.
I
saw him with a Dominican team shirt, so...
He loves the Dominican Republic, but he's Puerto Rican. Anyway, first question. comes from battered herons, and it's something we've touched on for a bit here, so we'll go in a little detail, but not too much. Has Drake made this defense look better than it really is since they haven't surrendered a goal by an opposing player yet? So just to reiterate, through 3 games, Inter Miami's given up a total whopping 1 goal, and that was the Christopher McVey own goal. Now, while that is true, they've given up a lot of good looks that Drake Callender has made spectacular saves on, which is why he's been named to the MLS Team of the Match Day 2 in the first 3 weeks. He's been playing lights out very well in terms of his shot-stopping ability. I think he's made that defense look better than it is. I was actually talking to somebody in the lead up into the game against NYCFC, and they asked me about the back line, and I said, look, it's definitely more talented, there's more quality in it, but there's still weaknesses there. Christopher McVey still has his moments where he struggles, and then we saw that in this game where he scored an own goal. I think if you had to say where are the weaknesses in the back line, I think McVey and Yedlin are it. 2 weeks ago, before the game against Philadelphia Union, someone reached out to me, gave me a call, and was going over the team and analyzing the game, and they said something that I think is true. DeAndre Yedlin is a reactionary defender. Someone who reacts to the play as opposed to anticipates the play. Now, he's got elite athleticism in terms of his speed, so a lot of times that reactionary defending, he gets by on that because he's quick enough to make up for either poor positioning or being high up the field. Like he can make up for that because of how athletic he is. Another defender makes that mistake or is higher up the field and they can't get back just because they don't have the wheels nor the engine.
Why he played in the Premier League, because that is exactly what they want in their fullbacks or whatever you want to, wingbacks or whatever.
Fullbacks. They're fullbacks. Unless you're playing in a 5, then you're wings. Anyway, nonetheless, soccer glossary aside. So, defensively, there's still weaknesses there. As a collective, I think they're a solid group, but they're, like anything else, there's strengths and there's weaknesses. Drake Callender has prevented those weaknesses from being more exposed than they could have been because of the saves he's made. Defense does need to tighten up. Again, that's my key to the game this weekend. So, yes, Drake Callender has helped that defense look better than it is. I do think Christoph, he's a player that anticipates, right? To kind of go conversely off of what I was just saying about Yedlin, completely different player, center back, of course, but he anticipates the play. He reads the game, and that's where I think DeAndre Yedlin struggles. DeAndre Yedlin's more reactionary, doesn't necessarily read the game all that well. McVey, I think he can anticipate the game, but I still think defensively he's not the best one-on-one, or doesn't have the most
voluntarioso. He's I don't know how to translate that to English, but he's a center back that is voluntarioso, that goes and fights for.
It gives it his all.
Yeah,
gives it his all, but not necessarily the most talented.
Exactly.
And you could see that on the own goal, right? Clearly an awkward clearance attempt. And
clumsy.
Yeah, clumsy. There we go. No, what do we call it? Clumless.
Clumless was Pellegrini's tackle.
No, I still think reckless. But okay. Anyway, all right, Andrea, this one is for you. Comes from Damon Star 80. Brazilian churrasco or Argentina asado? And explain your answer! ! Big grin smiling emoji. I like this question. A non-football question, but a pertinent question nonetheless.
That is hard. Very hard.
And when I saw it earlier today when I was scrolling through Twitter and I was preparing for the pod, I was like, man, that is a tough question. I have my answer, but I'll wait for you to give yours first.
Oh, God, that is hard. I think it's going to depend generally on what you have with each thing.
No. Don't give me this sitting on the fence. It's very Steve Brenner, aka El Primo, in terms of trying to give me a diplomatic answer. No, you got to give me one or the other.
Oh, God. I think I'm going to choose Brazilian churrasco.
Wow. See, of course we had to disagree. I like both very much. I'm going Argentino. I'm going asado. There's just something about asado. You put your chimichurri. Mwah. Chef's kiss. I like both. Don't get me wrong. You can't go wrong with either one. But if I had to choose, I mean, man, that asilo. Okay, why churrasco? Why churrasco? Just give me a reason.
I like churrasco. I like both as you, but I like churrasco because it's a little bit more juicy. So I prefer it that way. But let me tell you something. I prefer baleadas over everything.
Oh my
And I'm gonna get Franco baleada very soon.
BS. I have not had a baleada yet, so that's nonsense because they keep saying that, and yet I still haven't had one. So unless I go myself to go find one, it's probably not happening. So anyway, it probably won't happen until 2027, like NYCFC Stadium. Maybe. Anyway, all right. That does it for the Q&A session. There were a few other questions. A lot had to do with Gregore and whether Inter Miami can bring in a replacement. Look, I'll just say this to try to just touch on those or give you some type of answer. Look, unless Chris Henderson can pull off some incredible type of Chris Henderson magic, which, hey, maybe, I don't think they're going to bring in anyone that's more than a depth piece. Because you have to think longer term, right? If Gregory's still part of the plan, or Busquets, who's supposed to potentially, maybe, possibly arrive in the summer, he's part of the plan. You're going to bring in somebody else that's going to be in this picture long term for what is a temporary issue. So I think if anything, they could potentially bring someone on board. I'm sure Chris Henderson is exploring the options, but I think it would just be for a depth piece. I don't think it'll be a game changer or anything like that. It'll just be someone that can help fill the gap or fill the void in the meantime. All right, Andrea, final thoughts. I'll give mine, then we'll close out the show after that. Go.
Okay, my final thoughts for today is the CONCACAF Champions League. And this is a learning experience for MLS because what Austin did going to visit Violet FC from Haiti to the Dominican Republic was an insult to football. They didn't take the game seriously. They paid. They lost 3-0. And today, even though they won, they lost against Violet FC. Violet goes through. They're going to play either Orlando or Tigres, and Austin is eliminated. This is a lesson for MLS teams. They need to take the tournament seriously like Philadelphia did. Philadelphia went, they kept their players, they played their players here during the weekend against Inter Miami. They lost against Inter Miami. They went to El Salvador. They got a draw. But today they got to their home and won 4-0 against one of the biggest teams in Central America. They did their job. They respected their rival, and they are through. And Austin is in their house with the worst, ridiculous result in CONCACAF history because they were a little bit, no, they were not a little bit, they were disrespectful, and they didn't respect their rivals, and they didn't respect football because this is what football is about. So I hope they will learn because this in a serious league and in any other league that is participating in this tournament would be a resultado saca técnico. So I hope the league and the team learns and grows, especially their head coach, who was very arrogant.
There's the word. That is the correct word.
Learns to take competition seriously, like Jim Curtin, for example, did, or as Steve Cherundolo did with LAFC. And they got the result. They are through. Philadelphia is through. LAFC is practically through. So look at the difference. MLS should learn to respect and don't be arrogant just because you have money.
So that is the correct word. Arrogant. Soberbios. That is what Austin FC was. They went with a wholesale changed lineup to the Dominican Republic. That's where the game was played, with the unforgettable tree behind one of the goals. But they thought, hey, we could send our B team, complete B team, and we'll get a result. And if we tie, then so be it. We'll take care of business at home. Or if we lose 1-0, we'll take care of business at home. No. Put themselves in a hole by being that arrogant, by being that confident, overly confident. I can't even say confident. Arrogant. By being arrogant, yeah. And they came back to bite them. It came back to bite them. And this was a team, a Haitian team that couldn't travel several players, multiple starters because of visa issues for the away leg, and they still got the result. They just barely made it. They won the leg 3-2, and under a barrage of chances and under a lot of pressure laid on, but they did enough to hang on and to stun Austin FC. Like you said, it's a learning lesson. Austin FC is a young organization, so they'll learn from that. Josh Wolf will learn from that. But yes, definitely was a case of arrogance there from Austin FC. Now, for me, my final thought is that David Beckham is back in town. David Beckham reappeared for Inter Miami late last week at practice, smiling, talking with some of the players, and then he traveled to Yankee Stadium to take in the game. So David Beckham is back in the South Florida scene. I don't know how long he's sticking around for, but I don't know if it's a positive, I don't know if it's negative, whatever. You know,
was he the salt? Fue la sal?
Was he the bad luck? I don't know. He was just there. He was there, so he's back in. I don't know if he'll travel to Toronto or not, but he made a reappearance with Inter Miami. So something we didn't touch on. I don't think it deserves a whole lot of dissecting, but, you know, noteworthy nonetheless. Beckham is back. All right, so that does it for this week's show. We've gone longer than we wanted to again. We're working on it. We're work in progress here. So for Andrea Yanez, I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening to Miami Total Futbol